Good morning and welcome to our third session of our webinar series, Redefining the Library of the Future. My name is Danielle Wittig and I'm your moderator for today's session. We invited our in-house experts, specialists in product management and digital transformation who are redefining the library of tomorrow to help us to look at pioneering approaches that redefine how you operate and offer services. We asked them one simple question: what will the library of the future look like? Last week, Christine showed us how the discovery environment is changing significantly with an increasing amount of new material and material types becoming available. Today, Ido will speak about the dramatic change in the way people discover and access content, whether it's videos, music, news media, or peer-reviewed journals. But it's not just about smartphones and tablets that's printed newspaper, journals, and magazines. It's about relevancy, experience, and trust. Ido will analyze the trends in the student digital experience and show how all this impacts us. One of the major changes we expect to see in libraries is the use of new innovating technologies. We will share how a culture of cooperation and innovation has in fact defied predictions of an imminent demise as libraries now become the center of digital practice. This means we could be seeing further collaboration across the globe, enabling libraries and providing improved access to scholarly material and resources. These innovations could also help libraries to more effectively preserve and mine their collections online, thereby improving and redefining access to researchers. So we will show you how to use technology creatively and engage with your communities by providing a multitude of services that can open up exciting new opportunities. I will now hand over to Ido, our VP of Mobile Solutions. Ido, looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Daniela. Let me just share the presentation, and I hope you guys can see it. Can you confirm?
Yes, all good.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. Hi, so good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present today. The presentation is fairly straightforward. I wanted to share with you some of the observations and trends we're finding in the, I would say, in the digital space, in the student experience life cycle, the way they impact in general universities, and then also, specifically discussing libraries and the impact they may have on that topic as well, or on that subject field. At any point, as Daniela mentioned, feel free to use the chat box. We will have time at the end for questions and answers. And I hope the conversation here stimulates exactly that kind of discussion following it. And with that being said, I'll get started. So as it relates to student experience, one of the interesting one of the interesting surveys I've seen in recent years was the one done by LivePerson. And they did an analysis of if you were about to leave home, what would you take with you? Would you take your phone or would you take your wallet? And one of the things they found was the big, I would say, gap between different age groups. And this was fairly consistent across different countries. You'll have the slide at the end. I recommend, or I offer you to go and read the full study, whether it's in Australia, France, Germany, UK, US, Japan. People of the ages between 18 and 24 consistently, even up to 35, consistently voted that they will take their phone with them. The shift begins when you look at the age groups of 35 and above, where there's a drastic change, where suddenly you see the wallet being the one that's being carried with them. Now, why is this important? At least from my perspective, it symbolizes two things. One is the increased dependencies younger people have on their phones, and it's not surprising with Apple Pay, Google Pay as well. You can pretty much use your phone as a wallet as well. Identification cards, we'll discuss some of the interactions there. But if you ask me personally, if I would leave home with just one of them, I would probably take my phone simply because it's my center of communications and it can function as a wallet as well. And that's the first component, the increased usefulness, I will say, of the phone. The second is the gap itself, in a way, represents a difference between those presenting or providing the services to those consuming them. Now, I'm not saying this is in every university, in every library, this is the case. But as the survey shows, there is a difference in terms of the way people think of the world and what's the, sort of what's at the heart between 35 and above and 35 and under. And I think that gap represents challenges, but it also provides opportunities. From our perspective, one of the things we try and do on an annual basis is to actually reach out to students and try and understand their digital lives. For the past 3 years, and this year we'll do one as well, we've been working with our community, with our customer members, and offering them the opportunity to ask their students up to about 20 questions. It's a fairly intensive or a fairly comprehensive survey. And we've received so far, more than 5,000 responses between the 3 years, and we're hoping to obviously increase the number this year. One of the questions that we ask is, first of all, what device do you own? And the second, what device you cannot live without? Which devices people own, and these are students, you can see it, fairly obvious that smartphones and laptops will be at the top of the list with quite a sharp decline afterwards. But what's quite, not too fascinating, but what's insightful at least, is the fact that 76% of the responders say they cannot live without their phone, and that is a big difference from the device afterwards, which is a laptop, and that's only 45%. So 3 out of 4 people said that, again, the smartphone is really where their lives is all about, or that they wouldn't be able to live without. Personally, I would probably be within that. Looking at the different devices and the different technologies offered here, I would probably, testify myself. You can agree or not between these devices. Not sure I couldn't live without, but this would be the top useful tool. Another question was, how do you prefer accessing information? So given the choice of smartphone, desktop, laptop, etc., we see an interesting split between different tasks that students perform. We see obviously the more simple tasks, consuming information like events, news, things like that. Everyone, or the majority, has preference for smartphones and sort of information on the go. Where more intensive activities such as tutorial support, submitting coursework or essays is still done predominantly on desktop or laptops. And the second question there, another question there, was, how do you prefer to be contacted? So there is one thing to access the information, but what would be your device of choice when it comes to being notified about changes or things you need to do? And you can also see here, again, different, more lightweight activities tend to be, using an app. You can see that checking your class schedule, seeing library loans, checking assessment deadlines, things like that, which you naturally do on the go, whereas things such as financial fees are still, email predominant. I find it a bit interesting. Actually, we're seeing the number change over time. Traditionally, everything that has to do with financials, monetary changes, payments, email is still a very preferred method, but we see over time between these 3 years that the number is actually declining. I think people are starting to get used to, even accessing their bank account from the smartphone, and with different payment technologies also conducting those in the phone as well. And this is, from our perspective, trying to check the usefulness of Campus M and trying to understand whether we provide services that are relevant to students Um, I have on my phone about 100 different apps, probably open between 8 to 10 of them on a daily basis. And it's one of the performance indicators for us to see how many students use Campus M on a daily basis. And with 70%, just over 70%, I think this is quite an encouraging number. It obviously speaks volume of how institutions implement, make sure it stays relevant and contextualized to the student, but it's also a good indication for us whether we are providing that tools and platform. So this was more in general about student experience, their use of phones, their use of digital technologies. What I wanted to move forward is basically present, and this is a very subjective list of, top 5 student digital experience trends. Again, feel free to use the chat box and send comments and thoughts which you have. I'll be happy. I think the last slide also has my emails. I'll be happy to get your ideas and other things which you find online or, experience yourself as well. Trend number 1 is the transition to a mobile-first experience. I think the trend represents not just a mobile-first or a mobile-responsive or mobile-supported experience, but actually thinking mobile-first experience. And I shared, you can see here on the right side, a couple of screenshots I took from my phone. One of them, if you use an Apple, if you use an iPhone, and if you go under settings, you have a screen time option, and that shows you how much you've used your phone in the last week. I'm happy to let everyone know that I was able to reduce it from more than 6 hours to only 5:44 a day. But it basically, what it means is if I sleep 6-7 hours a day, every third minute that I spend awake is on my phone. I know it sounds, it doesn't sound that good when you say it like that, but ultimately that's the reality. It can be used obviously for navigation. I drive to work, I drive back when we used to drive or go to work physically, but it still represents a huge amount of time that I spend on my phone. And the second screenshot which you see is actually my air condition control. We recently upgraded our AC system at home, and one of the things it came with is an app. And sometimes, I would get a text from my wife. I would be at work or other place because the app works better on my phone than on hers. And she would say, can you turn the AC on or can you lower the temperature? And this symbolizes, to me at least, the success or the meaning of a mobile first. It was easier for her to text me to, make changes to the temperature than actually go somewhere, find the, remote control and make the changes herself. I don't think it's, we can call it laziness. I just think it's efficiency. And this is what a mobile first experience, and we're seeing the trend, starting in many places. And we definitely think and starting to see it more and more on campuses as well. Well, first impressions count. If you think of prospective students, most likely the first engagement or the first time they would try and read or explore anything about the university is going to be on their mobile phone. Video materials, you see a big use of YouTube, like the consumption of YouTube in different age groups is also something worth looking at. And then being easily reachable. These are just, sort of 4 different tips. What does it mean for universities? I use the example of Alexa. If you're not familiar with Alexa, type in Google, Amazon Alexa. Alexa is a personal assistant, a digital personal assistant. You can ask Alexa what time it is, please add 2 speakers or to my shopping list. How long will it take me to get to work? Pretty much every basic question you have, sometimes even more complex ones. And I think for universities, the mobile first experience or the idea that it needs to act the same as obviously every other system used by students is similar. Students have simple questions, so sometimes simple, sometimes not, but when and where is my next class? Can I register my attendance? Do I still have fees that I need to pay? Open my reading list for the next class, and things like that. How easy it is for students to do it today on the go. Not even on the go when they're on their phone. How many clicks, how many portals do they need to go through? How many different interfaces? Has the experience really been not just optimized but actually designed to be consumed from a mobile interface? This is, some of the questions which we've seen and some of the impact we believe it will have on universities. And for libraries, I would say what's the impact of that? The impact is, how do we make sure that library services are not just available, but are an integral part of the student mobile experience? Obviously, for us in Ex Libris, integrating different solutions into our Campus and mobile app is a fairly straightforward activity. But what's the goal? The goal is ultimately to increase the exposure, making sure, again, that the services are not just there, I will say, responsive and accessible, but they're there front and center as part of the student's university mobile experience or the general digital life. And we've seen quite good results in that, whether it's in the new school, whether it's in University of Montana, many other schools which have integrated to the increase in library resources and library services as a result of them being part of that mobile-first experience. So the first trend, I will say in summary, is the transition to that mobile-first state of mind. And the result of that, what are the activities that both universities and libraries are doing to ensure really not just that it's supported on mobile or responsive or works, but actually it's a mobile-first experience. Moving forward, the second trend, I would say it's not a new trend. It's something which started several years ago. I think this is a 2016 even article or, a piece of what Google has in terms of micro moments. And the idea is, at least Google identified 4 different micro moments. I want to know, I want to go, I want to do, and I want to buy. Those are the 4 types of things, in very generalization that can be used for micro moments. The idea is, it's an intent-rich moment when you turn to a device to act on a need, just as it says here. Now, we're seeing an increase in support for these micro moments, and think even on yourself, and those are becoming more and more mobile. And also for the academic environment, as I mentioned before, the services, not all of them are simple, and we saw it, how do I prefer to access information or services? You see an increased number of these services becoming what we may call not microservices in the technology sense, but micro moments. I want to know when my accessing your class schedule, knowing when the assessment or knowing when an assignment deadline is due, things like that. And what does it ultimately mean for a university in general? It means, first of all, and this is again taken from that Google article, you need to be there. If you're not participating in the environment which students are already found or are already present and using, you're already presenting a major challenge. The second is it needs to be useful. So it's not just about showing 20 different links to different things they can do, but it's actually being useful in a sense that show me information that's relevant to me, show me how I can do different activities that are, again, contextualized and relevant. And then the third component, it needs to be quick. We've seen endless number of articles and research done on the attention span of students and, even younger kids these days, and the attention span is just going down in terms of time. So obviously the time for consuming the information, the number of clicks, the responsiveness, how many different portals or interface they need to go through, My only comment here in terms of the trend is we're starting to see more and more focus on decreasing those, making it quicker, making it more relevant, but also making it more inclusive to different elements or different areas on campus. What does it mean for libraries? I was trying here to think, just off the top of my head. I've been with Exlibris for the past close to 13 years, working most of my time in library products, and just basic things like I need to book a room in the library. And I think we'll talk about the Corona impact in a second, but even now, booking of resources, all that coordination is something that will need to be very, tied down in a way. How simple it is today for students to book a room in your library or a study space or a workstation. How many clicks do they have to go through? Try and do that on the web. Try and do that from a mobile device. Is there actually an application they could use? Try and get the experience for them, because that is ultimately a micro moment. Another example can be if they want to open a library guide on a specific topic, how quick is the access? How easy it is for them to do that? Will they go to maybe a Google and type in the name of your library or university with that guide? Will they go first to the university library? Try and simulate those activities. And that's really, whether you're there or not, that's the first. If they can't find it, obviously, despite the fact it's available, it means for them it was not. If it was useful, if it was contextualized in the relevant moment, and then also how quick was the access to it. I just wanted to give one example from Edinburgh Napier. One of the things which we've seen is the way they've integrated a few library products and the increase in usage. When we look at the analytics and you look at the statistics behind it, and obviously Campus Amp, similar to other Exlibris products, comes with that analytics component, you're able to see that the library gets, it's the fifth most used service on the app, which shows again the usefulness and how much it's needed. And 1 in every 30 clicks is actually click on the library tile. And I think, again, it's a good combination of it's there, it's available, it's useful. Students need library services, and also it's fairly quick to get to the information, search for materials, look at the account information, see the loans requests, and things like that. Moving on to the third trend, I will say a change in privacy versus functionality. If we would have been doing this webinar in February, I will say the trend would have been increased focus on privacy across the university and within the library as part of that. And this was also part of the top 10 list. So you can see it was on the EDUCAUSE list. You can see information security strategy, privacy, always very prominent, always very much at the top. However, what we're starting to see now, whether we're, I wouldn't say whether we're pleased about it or not, but I would say whether this is something we support or not, we're starting to see not necessarily relaxation, but reconsideration in terms of the balance between privacy concerns as well as the overall, I would say, population concern. And you can see here the quote from the OECD that many governments are taking basically unprecedented measures to track, trace, and contain the spread of coronavirus. Even in my home country here, where I'm speaking with you, in the past they've used different, measures to use the mobile phone to actually locate where you are. You would receive a text if you were exposed to a, diagnosed coronavirus person. This is something that it seems fictional in a way. If we would be talking about it a few months ago, but in these days it's reality, and it's the same kind of rethinking of the balance that we were starting to see across universities as well. For example, there are external regulations that require compliance, and they differ between one country to the other. But at least from what I've seen, pretty much every country has, or state or province, obviously depending on the size of the country, has some regulation and some things which universities will need to comply with. Also, it's expanding the scope of the data that's being stored, managed, and processed. And that's simply due to the fact that students are not always, on campus. Many are online, many are quite far remote. And the interesting thing, which I can say from firsthand here in Campus M, we're receiving more and more requests or questions, not necessarily enhancement requests, do it, but more questions about can we? For example, can you store the user location, even on their own device? So later it can be used for contact tracing. Things like that, which, before I will say, not only did we not hear about them, we pretty much heard the opposite. How do you make sure you don't do that? You can also see how we're working with different institutions to support the need to comply with regulations. For example, for people or for students, staff, faculty, everyone, when they go into certain buildings, they need to register their attendance there. They need to say, basically, I'm there. You can do it in many ways. You can do it voluntarily with a form, with a QR code. Different technology, beacons, different technology can be used. But ultimately, we're starting to see again that balance changes. From our perspective, one of the key elements and one of the key guidelines is to ensure full disclosure at any point. So at the beginning and also when certain action is being taken, to ensure the user is aware of what information is being requested, taken, captured, etc., where it's stored, how it's stored. So with the increase in, I will say, capturing, processing of more information, I believe there will also be more regulations and more strictness around ensuring that indeed that information is not misused, stored properly, etc. I just gave an example here on the right from University of Waikato. They've got one of the tiles basically allowing the users to just list or state which building they're entering for later contact tracing, again, fully voluntary. Trend number 4 is the increase for personalized, and with personalized, maybe even contextualized content as well. This is highly influenced, I think, by first big data technologies that allow us to analyze the information better on a personal level rather than on a more group level. You can see here on the right, these are actually screenshots from my phone from the way I use Netflix. It's showing me, top 10 things which are in my, in Israel, in my country, things which I've started working. It's becoming quite expected of mobile apps and different solutions or even vendors you work with to know you better. And again, the full disclosure of what information is captured, how it's captured, how it's used. Sometimes it can even be annoying. I can tell you I'm receiving, you start watching a TV show, after 20 minutes you give up, you suddenly get an email saying, hey, maybe you should continue watching this. So there needs to be, again, a certain balance or an understanding of what's useful when it comes to personalized information and what can feel a bit intrusive. But the trend to provide personalized experiences is definitely here to stay and increase. And I think for the students, the expectation that you may start one set of activities in your phone, complete it on the web, do something later on your iPad. The whole notion of an omni-channel student that's not just consuming and information from one device, but expects to receive the same experience, but the continuity of them on different devices. And again, going back to my Netflix example, you can start watching something on your TV, stop, when you're not flying, but assuming flights will come back at some point, open your iPad and you can continue exactly from the same location, from the same place which you stopped on your TV. So not providing the personalized experience in terms of, cross-device relevancy, obviously letting the university manage everything, but really providing personalized information contextualized to the user. So don't just show me which classes are taking place on campus. Show me my classes, where they are, allow me to navigate there. And then, of course, showing relevant information. For example, if you're a freshman, show more welcome guides, things on campus, how to use different services. If you were graduating, if you're about to graduate, if you're a senior or third or fourth year, show me what is the checklist I need, what are the things I need to complete in order to receive my degree. So again, the different services should be provided to users based on who they are as part of the group, but also, of course, based on their personal behavior and the way they use the app. And this is the last trend, which again, we're seeing more and more increase on touchless, and this is a direct result. I would say the emphasis here or the growth in this trend has been quite visible in the last few months, and that's the need for touchless services. Something which we've seen happening before. I mentioned earlier using your phone as as your wallet, as a payment method. That's something that started a few years ago. But really with the spread of the coronavirus, we're seeing different services trying to think, how can I provide them without any human interaction between different people? One example can even be measuring the capacity of how many people are in a certain location. Take the library. Certain countries have limitations. You're only allowed to have 30 people for this size of space. I've heard different libraries or different places that basically use, you get a card when you come in. You get a card, and once they run out of the cards, they know the place is at full capacity. Obviously, every time someone leaves the building or that location, they return the card. I remember going in, not sure you want to hold a card that's been held by others. So trying to think, how do we use touchless devices to do that? In the example I just mentioned, you could easily use an iBeacon as a counter. You could use QR code. You could use different technology. But the idea is, let's try and take something which was a contact-based service and try and provide it as a touchless way. And again, a few examples: room capacity, which I mentioned, room entrance. So rather than swiping a card, using the built-in NFC technology within the phone. Student ID, which is something I'll touch on, and payment as well, are just a few examples. And I wanted to give the student ID because I think, as we've seen from the first survey, paper article, which I shared about which devices use more, wallet or phone, it's likely that a student will come to campus without their wallet or forget their wallet at home with their student ID in it, and they'll forget their phone. I think pretty much everyone can agree on that, the likeliness of that. And one of the things we worked in Campus M is to provide integration with the university ID management system. So students can actually open their phone, click on the ID tile, and actually show it and use it. It can have a barcode, it can use the NFC. So just complementing the physical card with a digital one. And think of the different scenarios in which you would hand your card to someone. Now just open it on the phone so it's available for scan, available for review. Same kind of information and same kind of services we're seeing now that's being used for health declaration. So even at Ex Libris, if we go to those offices that are open, part of the regulation require us to actually sign a document. Now these things are becoming touchless and are provided through technology devices. And I think a mobile device is probably at the top because you don't expect people going into the library requiring to sign a health declaration, take the laptop out of the bag, open it, click on an icon, etc. Obviously, everything has to happen in a, as we described, a mobile-first kind of an experience. So with that being said, these are the 5 trends I wanted to share with you. I did prepare also just a few slides to discuss how Campus M actually supports those student digital experiences that I'll be happy to share with you, and then we can open the floor for questions. So really, the idea behind Campus M is to allow you to stay connected to students, and by students, as you can see, we mean it in the more broader term, whether they're prospective students, current, graduates. The idea is how do we deliver meaningful and personalized digital experiences? Whether it's remote, whether it's in person, how do we deliver something that's meaningful, meaning it has value, but it's also relevant to that individual? The product itself has many, many benefits beyond just obviously being a university branded app. It comes with analytics. It integrates with different systems on campus to provide a true single entry point and single user experience feel. It has notifications, maps, navigation, so all the things you would expect from a mobile app. But I think one of the areas where we've worked on the most is really the personalization. How do we make sure the information is relevant to students based on who they are and obviously based on the information they consume? And a key guidelines for us in Campus M is trying to make it simple. Simple doesn't mean it is, I wouldn't, not necessarily, I don't want to use the word dumb or less sophisticated. Simple means easy to use, easy to consume, quick to consume. So whether it's on the device of a choice, whether it's a single interface, whether it's access to those services, and also, again, allow users to personalize their homepage experience. So if you're not interested in seeing, the weather on campus because, well, you live there, you can remove that service. If you're interested in seeing your LMS or VLE information at the top, you can just, similar to the way you can do it on your homepage on your phone, you can change the layout and design. And I think this is really the important part, as well as contextualizing the journey. As I mentioned, you may want to show a graduating student how many days they have to graduation. You probably don't want to show that to a first-year student. A 4-digit number is not the most encouraging detail you can share with them. And also, of course, making it simple for you to manage the app, to use it, to continue and expand the use and offer. So everything is web-based, agile releases, similar to other products which you've become familiar. The management of the app is role-based, so it can be distributed between different groups on campus. And really the idea is to have you go live quickly with out-of-the-box integration, content, etc., and just continue and expand from there. I'm not going to go too much into how it's built, but again, it's an enterprise-level product, can be used as a web portal, as well as obviously the native app. The idea is how do we ensure the usefulness across devices, as we mentioned, that omni-channel student, so that support. In terms of number, we're seeing, the Campus M community has about 120 customers in it, but with the usage is just quite impressive. Between the number of active students, the number of check-ins we have in attendance, the number of page views, that's with 1 billion. So institutions that implement it, roll it out, make it useful for the students, the usage is just terrific, and it's very encouraging to see. And we're now starting to see more and more institutions, sort of joining that community. And that's it. With that being said, in terms of summary of the trends we've talked about and some of the things which, should be or can be done to address, we've initially mentioned the mobile first impression, really trying to think not just how it looks on a mobile, but think first, how is it designed for a mobile student, for a mobile user? Second is the focus on micro moments. As I mentioned, need to be there, need to be useful, and need to make it quick for the information to be consumed. The change in balance between privacy requirements and functionality requirements. Again, it's both an opportunity, but will add on more challenges, and I think we'll start to see more and more regulations and compliance lists and things like that as a result of it. Also delivering the personalized experience. I think if you already work on an app and if you already delivered something to your students, if it's just a link farm and if it's just general information about the library and it's not personalized, the use will go down very quickly. And the personal element is exactly what keeps people engaged and using it on a regular basis. And of course, the transition to touchless services, where we're seeing more and more, and this is not a trend that started because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but for sure will be enhanced and increased in these times. So that's it. I promised my email. You can see it here. It's fairly straightforward. It's basically my name at exlibrisgroup.com. If you have any comments, thoughts, not just in the next 15 minutes as we have, or 20, but even later, information, articles, data, and other things you want to share, I would be more than happy to receive your input and insights. We're looking always to change and adopt our robust strategy based on input from you guys. Daniela, I don't know if there are any questions so far on the chat.
Thank you. Thank you, Ido. Thanks for this presentation. Very insightful. And I will confess, I just checked my average usage on my phone. Well,
and?
Okay, it's less than 6 hours. Okay. I would just like to take this opportunity quickly to remind the audience to use the chat box or the Q&A box on the right-hand side of your windows. Please send us your question or feedback, comments like Ido said. Also, please feel free to use the hashtag Future of Libraries 2020 to send us comments, questions, etc. Ido, the first questions are coming in. I'm going to read the first one out for you. What have been the main changes you've seen in students' app behavior in recent months?
I think one of the things we're seeing, actually, it's interesting. Initially, there was a big increase in our usage, in Campus M usage. So many people turned to their phone again because they were receiving push notifications, alerts from institutions. In a way that the apps became the center of information where you can find the most up-to-date, and it was not just you can find, but the information sort of was sent to you in a proactive way. One of the things we're seeing is that curve is beginning to return to normal. Actually, with most students at home, we've seen also an increase of the use of the web component, meaning students are actually more spending time on the phones, but also time, you can think Zoom and Teams and other video conferencing, you're already on your laptop, iPad, etc. So we're starting to see also an increase in access from the web interface. This was quite interesting to see the two trends take shape over time. So I would say this is probably the main change. Yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry, I was just listening.
So I would say the second component, and I'll finish with just the second component here. We've seen that the more institutions use the app for updates, the more usage they receive also for other services. So even having a banner saying campus is at phase 2 with a link to what that means can drive a lot of usage to the app because they know it's very easy. They're already there. They're seeing what changes are being made. So sort of keeping the app relevant also generates more usage.
Okay, great. Thanks, Abe. I have another question just came in. I'm going to read it out loud for you again. Does an over-reliance on providing services to students using digital technology risk disenfranchising those that cannot afford devices that support this technology?
It's a very valid point. How do we ensure that people without access to technology, in cases expensive technology, can still leverage and enjoy? There are no. I'm not an economist. I cannot speak, on the virtues and wrongs of capitalism, etc. This is, obviously beyond the scope of here. Obviously, universities still need to maintain the services, but those that cannot afford, I would say it in a simple way, and this is my own personal. I have to put a caveat here. This is my personal opinion. Unfortunately, people who cannot afford technologies will also be, will not be able to enjoy the full set of services that universities have to offer. I think the numbers, though, there are countries which we know, for example, even we work with University of Cape Town. So in South Africa, the situation is very different. So there needs to be also a focus on the vendor side to ensure that those micro moments are very low, sort of low usage consumption, and ensure that any consumption of videos, etc., is something that is not automatically, but things that are done, after a click, for example. And this is something that every institution can align. So I would say between the different institutions using CampusM or using mobile apps, there needs to also be an understanding of who the audience. If the audience is fully online and fully, technology equipped, that's okay. If not, certain deductions need to be made, but it's I don't have a really good answer for it. I think it's more of
an interesting question. I think
it's a sociology question.
Exactly. You can discuss this, I think, hours.
I'm not sure I feel fully equipped to answer it. Yeah.
Thanks a lot for this question, definitely. I have another interesting one. Is it a good idea to lead in an explicitly contextual way on a website in terms of tasks? E.g., for example, I want to find a book, I want to use a reading list, I want to research for an essay, rather than simply list services and how to use them.
This has always been my preference. I think we're seeing more and more task-driven interfaces that are being created. I think whether it's on the app, whether it's on mobile, I think ultimately that's what people expect. I can tell you even from when you look at different companies' websites, if you go on United, American Airlines, Lufthansa, British Airways, etc., the shift has been from, how do I accomplish different tasks? How do I accomplish the main ones rather than just having links or, places where you can be taken. So I would definitely, favor that approach. I think on the mobile, it's easier, and I would actually try and think of what services can already be promoted. For example, rather than asking, I'd like to book a study room, knowing where the student is, knowing which study rooms are available next to them. There are 12 study rooms within 1 kilometer walk if you need a study room now. So try and think, or try and create even that, exceed the expectations of what a student would want, and not just think of the action, but think of already what information can be useful for them to accomplish it even quicker.
Correct. Thank you, Ido. I can't see another question right now. Maybe we just give the audience one more minute. Just a reminder, of course, if you have another question popping up this week over the weekend, please feel free to send us a message. I just put up the email here on this screen again for your convenience. Of course, feel free to engage with us on Twitter using the hashtag FutureOfLibraries2020, or as usual as well, just send us an email. We're looking forward to hearing from you. Ido, again, thanks a lot. I can't see any question coming in right now.
Great.
It was a really pleasure listening to you today. I'm wishing everyone, the audience, and you, of course, a good afternoon. Take care. Stay safe.